Down to the wire government funding negotiations are not unusual. An actual shutdown is less common. There have only been 14 since 1981, most of which were relatively short. Before 1981, there would be periods where the government would briefly run out of funds during an appropriations impasse, but government functions would work mostly as usual on the expectation that money would be provided later. It was in 1980 and 1981 when then Attorney General Benjamin Civiletti argued government agencies didn't have legal authority to continue running without congressionally provided funds. Most of these shutdowns have been fairly short. There were 8 during the Reagan years, all of which were 1 to 3 days. The long shutdown became a political reality in 1995 during a 21-day standoff between Democratic President Bill Clinton and congressional Republicans. 2013 saw a 16-day shutdown with closed national parks. The longest to date, though, currently, it started a few days before Christmas in 2018 and lasted 34 days. That shutdown cost the economy about $3 billion, according to the Congressional Budget Office. 800,000 employees, or 37% of the federal workforce, were either furloughed or worked without pay. It ended with Congress passing a bill to reopen the government that didn't include the contested $5.7 billion for a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. And this time around, the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, has authorized government departments and agencies to lay off employees during the shutdown. An OMB memo has authorized them to issue reduction in force notices to employees in programs with lapsed funding and that aren't, quote, consistent with the president's priorities. What that could look like is not really clear yet, as departments are still releasing their shutdown contingency plans. But to break it all down nonetheless, CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joins us now for more on the economic impact of a government shutdown. Kelly, no better person to talk to you than you. So if the government shuts down, how significant is the ripple effect on the larger economy?
So the way that I like to think about this is consumers, the federal worker, and then that broader economic picture. I mean, if you're a consumer, and you're not a federal worker right now, it's not incredibly going to change your life. If you're going to a national park, or maybe if you are applying for national flood insurance because your home requires that, you're in a particular area, you are going to face delays. But I don't want people to panic because you are still going to receive things like Social Security checks and Medicare. Now, the federal worker, you just mentioned, right, you're not going to get paid during that time. You're going to get back pay. But if you're someone that is struggling to make ends meet, the government is not going to pay you back if you incur an interest charge or a late fee on your credit card, or maybe you don't pay rent. And so that's where the trickle effect comes with the broader economy. And there's an analysis that was done by EY, and it says it's roughly $7 billion a week if the government shuts down. That seems like a lot versus that $3 billion number that you quoted. But remember, that was years ago. $7 billion for our economy is only 1/10 of 1% of GDP. So when you put it into that context, it's not that large. It's not nothing, but we often do rebound quite quickly in these types of situations when the government reopens.
Yeah, but no doubt people will be impacted if the government shutdowns, and that also includes you, because Friday is the jobs report, which is your bread and butter covering that. So if that report doesn't come out because of the shutdown, how big of a deal is it to not have that economic data?
Well, maybe I get my Friday off today, so who knows? No, I'm just kidding. I'll be reporting on this. So basically, we've got a jobs report. We've also got an inflation report coming out next week. And this is important because the Federal Reserve uses this economic data that the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases and has said that they will not release in a shutdown in order to determine what they're going to do with interest rates. They meet again at the end of October. I know a lot of people watching are looking for lower interest rates, businesses, consumers. And so what I've heard is if they don't have that new updated picture of how the labor market is doing, they might say, you know what, we're just going to be cautious and we're not going to make any changes, or they might delay that meeting as well. So that's something that definitely investors are also looking at.
And what makes this different from previous government shutdowns, Natalie, is the White House is threatening permanent federal workforce layoffs if this kicks in. Is that a certainty?
Well, it's unclear what positions and agencies would be impacted or most impacted. But what we do know is the Office of Management and Budget sent out a letter to federal agencies saying that they could use a shutdown as a, quote, opportunity to look for positions where government funding has lapsed and positions that don't fit with the president's priorities. So if you think about the cuts that have already been made under the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, it would kind of be a continuation of that. But what we do know, the president's priorities, enhanced immigration enforcement, public safety. This is coming amid, the president's crime crackdown and involvement of the National Guard. So those essential positions, federal law enforcement, military, they would have to continue work, obviously, without pay for now.
If the government shuts down at midnight, the impact may be felt at airports across the country. More than 58,000 TSA employees and 13,000 air traffic controllers would be working without pay. And CBS News' Chris Van Cleve is at Denver's airport with more on what flyers can expect.
We don't expect major disruptions tomorrow or the rest of this week if people show up at an airport like here in Denver. But if this shutdown is measured in weeks, not days, or stretches even longer than that, that's when we need to prepare for the potential of disruptions and delays. And I'm basing that off what we saw play out back in 2018 when we had a 35-day shutdown starting in December. As soon as that first missed paycheck, so think about 2 weeks in, we started to see sick calls from TSA officers really increase at airports across the country. That led to longer lines of checkpoints, so it took people longer to get through security. Some checkpoints had to be closed, and in one case in Miami, they even had to close an entire terminal because there weren't enough TSA officers to staff it. Now, TSA officers are not high-paid government workers, so missing a paycheck can have a profound impact. Air traffic controllers would also work without pay, and in January of 2019, air traffic control sick calls resulted in significant flight disruptions in the New York City area shortly before the shutdown ended. There is a shortage of air traffic controllers. During a shutdown, hiring and training of new hires generally stops. That would slow efforts to get more controllers on the job quickly. Amtrak should operate normally because while it receives federal funds, it is operated as an independent entity. Travelers heading to national parks, they're likely to be in for a disappointment. Most national parks will close to the public during a shutdown. The U.S. Travel Association estimates the cost of a government shutdown to the U.S. travel economy to be around $1 billion a week.
I want to bring in Kristen Bringle. She is the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at the National Parks Conservation Association. Ma'am, thanks for waiting while we wrapped up the president's speech there to those senior commanders. I know you've been on the docket for a while now. So let me just ask you, if the government does shut down, how would that impact national parks?
Essentially, national parks would not have any staff to run them. It would be essential staff only. And last time around during the shutdown, we saw a lot of vandalism, damage to parks, poaching of wildlife. And so we're really concerned about the effects of the shutdown on our national parks.
And during the 2018-2019 shutdown, the Trump administration did keep national parks accessible to the public without staff. Could that happen again? And what does that look like? And how difficult does it make it for the staff when inevitably the shutdown is over to come back to their jobs when people have been sort of going through those parks without any guidance from them?
Yeah, the main reason that we have our national parks is because we love these resources. We love these places that we go to visit, whether it's, the Arches in Arches National Park or waterfalls in Yosemite. And so people want these places well protected. What we saw last time was off-road vehicle damage throughout parks, vandalism, graffiti. Some buildings were broken into last time around. And so when you don't have enough staff to manage these national park units and you're still making them accessible to the public, damage can happen. And one of the most horrific things that happened last time around was someone chopped down part of a Joshua tree for firewood. And so when you don't have rangers, when you don't have the proper staff in our national parks, we see this damage that happens and there's no one to stop it. So we're worried about going into this shutdown, what could happen and how they're going to either allow or not allow the public into parks. But we really want to send a message to folks that we're all in this together and we want to protect these resources. And, and this is a tough time of year. This is October. It's actually a beautiful time of year to go to our national parks. So we know a lot of folks want to go there. About 1 million a day visit our national parks in October. And it contributes about $80 million to the economy per day. So we know people want to get into these places. We do too, but in a government shutdown, there's so few staff and so many possibilities for damage or people getting hurt that it just doesn't make sense to keep them open. We would prefer that they just close during a shutdown.
All right, really good advice. Kristen Bringle, thank you very much, and thank you for what you do. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
And CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga joins us now. Nicole, good to see you. There are more than 115,000 employees at the Justice Department. So what will this shutdown mean for them?
Tom, good to be with you. Shutdowns are always good educations into the U.S. government, but a shutdown would have a pretty limited effect on the Justice Department. My colleague Scott McFarland reporting only about 10% of DOJ workers could be sent home. And crucially, the FBI and FBI agents won't be furloughed. National security work does continue along with the DEA, the ATF, and the U.S. Marshals Service. Those are the folks tracking down fugitives and serving warrants. But there are some restrictions here. Employees can't be reassigned. They can't be given new duties, and offices can't be restructured during the government shutdown. That means that for FBI Director Kash Patel, his push to move staff out of the Washington, D.C. headquarters here and into field offices would be put on hold until Congress takes action.
So with all that considered, I'm thinking about ongoing criminal cases and investigations. Would the shutdown have any effect on those operations at all, Nicole?
Yeah, well, criminal cases and investigations, including the one we've been hearing about recently involving former FBI Director James Comey, those will keep moving, but civil litigation could slow down, like lawsuits against local governments, businesses, or other organizations. Extraditions will also continue. That's when a suspect or a convicted criminal is transferred from one country to another or even one state to another to face charges or serve a sentence. And DOJ considers that essential to protecting life and property. Also, immigration cases won't be paused either. And that is because the Department of Justice is pointing to the president's emphasis on border enforcement and the ongoing emergency declaration to try to keep those cases moving forward, Tom.